Hello, everyone. Welcome to Art Expression Sessions today. I'm so excited to teach this topic of photography for kids. And this is a subject that I have gotten into for fun. I've taken several courses and I've learned a couple things that can get you started. As you start to take photos, you can start to think of things that will make your photos better. So I'm going to switch to my screen view now so that you can see my presentation. See if I can find it. Here we go. All right, okay, so we've got here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about photography, and all of the pictures in this slideshow, I ran around my house today grabbing pictures. Some of them I arranged, some of them I just found. So the first principle you're going to want to start with is light. And first of all, you want to make sure that you are in an area that has good lighting. If you're indoors, it's better to be near a window or by natural light than it is to be under like a light bulb. So sometimes you can't decide that or choose that, but you need to be aware of how much light is in the area. Try to find an area with good lighting. This is my kitchen. There's a window here that lets in some natural light. And then I also turned on all the lights. So that helps. And then you can look for items that you can put into your pictures that reflect light in interesting ways. So I have this little glass cookie jar on this surface that reflects the light in an interesting way, different than the peaches, which kind of have a uniform look. And then the glass has little highlights and shadows on it. So that can be interesting. And the picture on the left of my little kitty cat, this is BB. It's just well lit. We've got a window in the room. There's light coming from the other direction, like behind me. The lights in the room are all turned on, so you can see all of the details of his fur, and then you can see the background. Now he's a black cat, so he needs a lot of light to make those details show up. When I try to take a photo of him and it's a little bit dark, you just see like a black lump, right? And maybe his eyes. So you got to keep in mind what you're photographing. Maybe it's a white object. Maybe it's like a blanket with all kinds of folds in it. If the light is too strong, it's going to look like a white blob, right? So you got to play with it a little bit. And luckily, phones nowadays do a lot of that focusing for you, and they change the white balance for you. So that's something usually that if you're taking a photo with an actual camera, like a digital camera, you can change the manual settings, but with a phone, you're really lucky. It kind of does it for you. And then this is a picture on the right of a little brass unicorn that I had, and I just moved it by the window, and I think it's a good picture because it shows like the highlights and the shadows and the material. The brass is very shiny, so it's kind of an interesting picture. Okay. And the second principle I want you to think about is texture. And texture is the way something looks or feels. So sometimes something can be very smooth, but the texture is a more interesting texture because maybe it's made out of wood, or maybe it's a stone that's round and very smooth, but it's got lots of different colors in it. So that's going to be a more textured object. And then something smooth or shiny is more consistent in appearance. So I have some examples here of texture. You could have, like a rough pot. It's got lots of little lines and ridges in it. And then I've got some materials here that are smooth and shiny. So that difference is interesting to look at. Then I found a seashell and a rock. I just put those next to each other to take a picture to show you that you can find things with interesting texture. And then it's kind of interesting to look at. You can also create texture with lots of shiny objects together. So just the fact of having something repeating over and over again, repetition creates texture. So although nothing in this pot is rough, when you put a bunch of things together, it creates a pattern, which is a texture. So there's that. So remember texture, we've got light and texture. Now we're going to talk a little bit about leading lines. And you can see the wall behind me has some lines, but it's not a very interesting dynamic picture. Like if you took a screenshot of me right now, it'd be kind of boring because I'm in the middle, the picture behind me is in the middle, my lines just go straight across. And when you're taking photos, especially for art purposes, you want to create some dynamic interest and movement. And you can do that really well with lines. And you can find lines in a lot of surprising places. So if you're outside, you're looking for things like fences or even the horizon. You know, sometimes the tree line goes down and the horizon, maybe the bottom horizon line goes up because you're angled, right? You're shooting trees up close and trees in the distance, or a building, you know, there's part of the building's close to you, part of the building's far away. When you take a picture, it goes like this, right? So it's a leading line. And when you do this, it's creating movement for your eye to follow those lines through the picture. Sometimes you'll have multiple leading lines, right? So this is a picture of just some books in my bookcase that are just, you know, instead of taking a straight on shot, you're going to try to create a diagonal with the lines. And then it's more interesting. Okay, this is another example. It's just a bin of colored pencils. All the pencils are parallel. So by taking a picture of them at an angle, like part of them are closer, part of them are farther away, it's creating a diagonal line. And that's more interesting to look at than just straight on. Although if I had taken a picture from straight above, the box would have created those leading lines, like the corners of the boxes would have all gone in. Okay, and then we have the rule of thirds. And if you have a camera with a viewfinder, sometimes this grid will pop up on your screen and it will help you decide where to put your subject. But the principle of this is that, for example, if I said my picture would be a boring one, if we took one of me sitting here right now, that would be kind of boring. So it would be more interesting if maybe I put myself off to here, because this is 1/3. So we have 1/3, 2/3. So I'm here, my eyes are at 1/3, 1, 2, my chin is at the bottom third, right? So this would be a more interesting composition if you were going to take a picture of a person, right? Put them slightly, you know, put them at 1/3. This can also, so this dog, his face, oops, sorry guys, his face is, or his head is centered, but where you see the interest is where his eye is at the 2/3 or one, I guess it's 2/3 and 1/3 up here. And his mouth down here is at the other intersection. So look where the intersections are. Those are good places to put key parts of your photo. And if you look at this other example of the landscape, there's one picture of the interesting rock right in the middle, right? Well, it's a good picture, but it's not as interesting as it could be, because if you put it over here, like on the right, where it's slightly off center, it's at that 1/3 mark, 1/3 mark. It's a little more interesting. And look at the clouds. So the clouds are creating leading lines, which makes it also very interesting. Okay, so this is an example I found around my house. And so it's just a little bear statue. And I have one picture on the left of him just straight on right in the middle. And it's not a super bad picture, but it looks better when I've put his face off to the side a little bit and up a little bit. So he's at the 1/3 and 1/3 marks. So that's a better composition. It's more interesting to look at. So keep that in mind. Here's another example. I had a globe on that I put on my counter, and you could take a picture of it straight on. Well, that's not as interesting as the picture on the right, which is slightly off-centered, following that rule of thirds. Okay, and this is second to last, perspective. Okay, so kids are really good at this, and sometimes they'll steal mom and dad's phone and go around the house taking pictures, and they come up with funny pictures, right? Especially little kids like 2- and 3-year-olds, and they have pictures of like their mommy's legs, like nothing above, or the legs of chairs or the legs of tables. So they just walk around taking pictures at their eye level, right? And so we laugh because it's funny, but consider your perspective. If you change it, it's going to be a little bit more interesting. So instead of looking straight on at the subject, tilt your camera up or tilt it down. And you can get some really interesting pictures this way and get a new way to look at something. So here are 2 more examples. I got down close to the ground for this one with the toy race car, and I'm looking at the underside of my furniture, which isn't that pretty, but it does make it a more interesting photo. And then I took a picture of a light fixture on the ceiling. And I also like how that light fixture does create some lines of light radiating out from that point. So just think about your perspective. Okay, and then depth of field. The depth of field is how far the lens or how far the subject is away from the lens of the camera. So this would, if the subject was here right next to my face, that would be a shallow depth of field, just like water, right? When it's thin, it's shallow. Okay, when the subject is farther away, like maybe a mountain in the distance, that's a very long depth of field. Okay, so you can experiment with this. One is not necessarily better than the other. It just kind of depends on what your subject is. So if your subject is a mountain, obviously you're going to want to be able to have the mountain in focus. But if you have like a particular object, like a still life, like a vase or a cup or something, or a toy, and you want it to look more interesting, you're going to want a very shallow depth of field. And what that does is it'll make it focus on the thing in the foreground, and everything behind it will become a little hazy and blurry. And it's, I often see this done in like when people are selling things online, they want the focus to be on the thing that is being sold, right? Not on the background. And this is also used in portraits a lot because you want the subject of the face to be sharp and everything else to be in the background, like trees or bushes or buildings. Okay, so you can try that, experiment with that. Okay, so here is a review of all of those principles that I talked about. Light, texture, leading lines, the rule of thirds, perspective, and depth of field. When I first started photography classes, I was really overwhelmed with all of the things to remember, and these are just a few of there are other principles too. But what you can do is start with one and practice the one, and then maybe look for a picture with 2, and then maybe look for a way to find a picture with 3. And you're not going to have all the principles in every photo necessarily, but if you at least hit 2 or 3 things in one photo, you're doing a good job. And you'll get better and better, and you'll remember the rules better. They'll become more natural as you practice. And I also wanted to point out to you guys, if you do enjoy taking photos, there are some great ideas online. There are kids photography challenges, or sometimes they're monthly photo challenges weekly photo challenges. These are fun for adults too. But here, let me see if I can move my face out of the way. Okay, so you can see these items over here of things that can spark an idea. Okay, so day one, family. So you might take a picture of your mom or your dad or a brother or sister. Maybe for a favorite toy, go find a few toys and take pictures of them in different places. I do love this idea too for kids because it's kind of like journaling, right? You're documenting your life, and maybe in 20, 30 years, you'll look back and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember that favorite blanket, or I remember that swing. I remember that playground. And sometimes as adults, we just get so busy just taking pictures of you, our children, that we forget to document important things like your favorite pair of shoes, or your favorite place outside in your backyard, or a favorite drawing that you've done. So anyway, these are some guidance on what you can look for pictures of. So be creative, think of lots of different possibilities, and then go to town and take a bunch of photos. And it's all digital, so you can delete anything you don't like. But when you're done with a session, when you've gone around and taken pictures of all your toys or whatever, you can sit down and look at your pictures and decide, okay, what did I do well in this picture? Or what did I not do so well? And how can I make this picture better? And as you practice trying different things, you're going to realize what you did right and what you maybe did wrong, and you'll get better and better. And you'll just learn as you go how to take better pictures that you like. So that is the end of art expression sessions today. I hope you have fun with it. And I want you to share your pictures with me when you're done in the comments. And if you would like, we can enter your photo into the contest for next month. So we will have to crop it because the size of the photo is usually 4x6, and I'll get it printed out as a 4x6, but then we have to crop off a few inches on either side to give it that dollar bill shape. So yeah, we'll have to do that, but send me your favorite photos and I can help you do that. So have fun today, go take lots of pictures, and I hope to see some of your work. Thank you guys. Bye.